I'm Lauren Greci, and you are listening to the Lifestyle with Lauren podcast, the show where we chat all the things: life, motherhood, Jesus, food, beauty, and wellness, and so much more. So grab a hot cup of coffee, kick back, and relax with us. I hope that you find joy, laughter, and encouragement today and every day. Thanks for being here. Friends, I'm so excited you're here today. I have a wonderful conversation with my friend Janell Marsh. We know each other from high school, and she shared a little bit on her Facebook page about her IVF journey and all the things that led up to the birth of her daughter. So I wanted to reach out to her and have her share her story with all of you. And boy, it is very inspiring, very much encouraging. And I just think you're going to love this conversation with Janell. So let's jump right in. Hope you enjoy. Hey friends, thank you so much for hopping on with us again today. I am so excited to have a friend of mine, Janell Marsh. We went to high school together. So Janell, why don't you take a moment and just introduce yourself to the viewers and the listeners and tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my name is Janell Marsh. Yes, I've known Lauren for, I'm not even going to say how many years, but yes, we're both Allen Eagles. Mm-hmm. And, some people went off and, went to out-of-state colleges, and I kind of stayed close to home. I stayed here in the Allen, Plano area. I went to Collin County Community College. And I thought, you know what? I want to do beauty. So I went into the beauty industry and was in the beauty industry for about 12 years. And went through management, went through, a lot of different struggles of just trying to build a career as a woman, which had its own ups and downs, but got married. Let's see. I got married. We'll talk a little bit more about that little ups and downs there, but I have a beautiful daughter who is 7 years old. Her name is Harper. And she, in my mid 30s, now is keeping me going all the time. So, best of luck to all the moms that are doing at home with COVID and everything else. That was a learning experience that I have now realized I am not meant to be a teacher.
So, and you're not doing the, I guess Allen, right? It's Allen ISD.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So y'all are all back in person and everything is going.
Yes.
Going well.
I sent her back.
Good.
Yeah. So she's been back since September, and she's in first grade, and she's done very well. So she thrives off the in-person, so the virtual at that young age is really difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm homeschooling this year because of that. Like I was and now I'm loving it. It was kind of like we're thrown into it. But yeah, he went to public kinder last year, our oldest son. And I kept thinking, he can't do this all year. He can't be sitting in front of this computer all year. And then my mind starts going, well, what if they do another shutdown? What if this happens again? I couldn't do that risk. I was like, you know what? We can homeschool. I was a teacher. I could surely do this.
Yeah.
There are some days that you cannot do it. There are some days where it's like, okay, today we just scratch school. We're just going to read and just play. And that's all.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's been fun.
Different when the kid knows, they're like, oh, I'm going to do this. And mom's going to,
Yeah,
absolutely. But more power to you. And any teacher that's out there, it's a thankless job, and it doesn't happen enough, but thank you. And I promise you, I'm not trying to bribe you with all the Starbucks and Total Wine gift cards that I send.
No, that is the best. Everyone would always ask, like, what is the best present to give a teacher? I'm like, gift cards. Always the gift cards. Teachers love Starbucks and Target.
And, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned let's kind of go back for a second to,
Yeah.
if you're cool with it, to your childhood. So did you
Yeah.
grow up? We'll kind of get to a post that made me want to reach out to you. We're going to
Okay.
talk about your IF or IVF journey
Mhm.
of how you got Harper, but you had mentioned about how God put you through these trials. So when did you
Absolutely.
accept Christ? Like, what was that walk like for you? What was your walk with the Lord like?
Um, so So there's a lot of, we're lucky, especially here in Collin County, that there are a lot of great youth groups. So I had first started with First Baptist Church of Fairview. They're now, I believe it's Cottonwood Creek off of 121. So started there. And again, it was, a high school friend that said, hey, let's go. And, you kind of follow. And thank goodness there was a good group to follow at that moment. So started going to youth groups, started doing the youth camps, and a lot of things that were happening in my home life. I grew up in a beautiful, family, loving parents, great, older sister, but there were a lot of health issues that started at a very young age. I had cousins who had passed away from cancer. I had an uncle who passed away from HIV. And then my dad started having, issues with his weight. And then it was my senior year and he had a heart attack. And that really started to really add a lot of weight and a lot of emotions that I think that younger adults sometimes struggle on how they should feel, because you try to stay strong, you don't like to cry in front of people, and yet you still have things Monday through Friday that you got to go to school, you got to get these things done. So all of those things really led up to needing to find a safe place. And that safe place really was, with a youth pastor, or at that time we had a lot of the seniors that were at Allen High School through, oh my gosh, I just went blank. I believe it was the FCA.
Mm-hmm.
That really, you would sit down with them, you start talking, and then something would kind of come up, and like this weight, you could start to kind of feel like this breakdown, and you just start crying for no reason. And you're like, why am I crying? Why am I so emotional? And it really was, to me, I really think that at that moment, it was like God saying, like, hello, like you're carrying all of this extra and you don't have to. And I think that at that young age, I wasn't quite sure how to deal with that. I myself also had a medical, which led me to infertility. I was 16. It was summer. I was about to be 17. It was about to be my senior year. And I went into the doctor, and it went from a, basic exam to, we need to pull you over to the side, and, we're concerned about something. So that's on my 17th birthday. That was probably the hardest thing, was I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get surgery on my 17th birthday. And on that day, I was going to find out if I had cancer or not. And so they went in, and sorry, my fan's on and now I'm freezing. But they went in, and on a sonogram, it's going to show the front of the picture. And so they're going in thinking that, it's a confined area, it's going to be very easy, 1 to 2 hours. And just a few, 30, 40 minutes into it, they really realized that something was amiss, and it was actually much larger. So they did go out to my mom and in the waiting room and said, your daughter may be getting a hysterectomy today. It's about the size of a Nerf football. The fallopian tube has now wrapped itself around. A fallopian tube is only supposed to be 4 to 5 inches long. Mine was well over 12 inches. That tumor had been, he said, probably my entire life. And that was probably also why I was having an eating disorder, just because I was never hungry. And it was just because it was just kind of pushing on all of my organs. So, I woke up the next day, and they said, we saved everything, but, there's a lot of reconstructive work. So, your future might look a little different than somebody else's. So I already knew going into, marriage and a relationship that might be, I might have to, look into adoption or foster. My options were going to look different than what I planned my life to be, which we all know you could plan all day long. Yeah. And there's something else already laid out for you.
And that's a lot to take in at 17.
It is. My dad, it is. My dad had a heart attack later that year. And I remember it was at the same hospital that I had. It was Plano Medical Center off of 15th Street. And I remember them coming. They were like, your dad, or not your dad, but your husband, to my mom, he shouldn't be here. He had 98% blockage. So my senior year, I had already started late due to the fact that I had surgery July 31st. So I started my senior year late, and then my dad had the heart attack. So it was a lot of different things kind of going on. And at that point, I realized I didn't want to leave Alan. I wanted to stay close to my family. Being a daddy's girl, I'm like, oh, wait, hold on. And at that time, there's a lot of people that are young, you're 18 and you feel like life is, all of, around you. And at 18, I was really feeling like, you could lose a parent, you could lose a family member, and your life isn't that long, so that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to go to community college. I'm going to stay close. And that's when I really realized that prayer at night, everybody prays differently, but at night, like mine is, I just give it, and at that point I had to visualize taking what was holding me down and taking the grief and the anger that I would have. And I'd be like, God, I got to get to sleep tonight. I got to test in the morning. I need you to take this for me. Because I don't know what to do with it. And clearly worrying about it, it's not helping me right now. Mm-hmm. So visualizing, giving that away really did help during times that, emotions ran high, and, it was hard to go to my parents and say, what if I can't have kids, or is dad going to die, or something like that. And that was just not something that I was ready, those conversations. So at night, that's when I had my conversations, in my head, I would whisper them, just be like, okay, get me through this week. But it was definitely some hard times.
Did you have a friend or anybody else like that you would call and just kind of share all of these fears and all these worries with that helped you through a lot of this too?
You know what? I didn't. And I think it's just because nowadays I do. We have this beautiful thing called text. And we have this great thing that, we are really connected. But, 2000s, you didn't really have that. We're still on our house phones. We have the, so when you were at school, you went to school, and, you hung out with friends, and I think everybody was struggling. And now that we have, Facebook, Instagram, you're really seeing what made us who we are. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of reflect and you're like, wow, I always thought that, something was going on, but it wasn't really sure. And here we are able to talk about it because we've gone through it, and we now see the other side of it. So,
and I think too, a lot of people, especially as a teenager, you feel like the only one. It's like, I'm the only one that's going through this. I'm the only one. And a lot of that too, depending on your personality type is too, you don't want to just impose all of that on somebody else. And so I feel like in high school, especially in that time when we didn't lay it all out on the line like today, I feel like, everybody is sharing everything. So it was totally different. But yeah, there was so much that none of us knew what any of us were going through, even like our best friends. I feel like, half the time we never told them or shared any of this stuff. And you had a lot going on, and you kind of had to grow up really fast, and especially going through the surgery and thinking I might not be able to have a child. Like that's heavy for a girl, to
Yeah.
when, like you said, you have all these plans and marriage and, babies and all of this. So
Yeah.
yeah, you had a lot that you were working through.
Yeah. And for, we're groomed at a really young age of what life should look like and what success should look like. And I feel like the 2000s weren't that long ago, but when I really think about it, the 80s, the 90s, and everything, it really was like, get a good education, find a guy, get married, have kids, and like this is what your life should look like, and this is what success should look like. And um, sadly, that's not how it goes. We know that. We know that some people move their steps around, and that's okay. But there wasn't someone there to say that's okay. So a lot of times you think that there's only one way to get to your final goal or whatever that should look like. And when it doesn't, you start trying to make other things work.
Yeah, and think about too the things that we played with. Like I played with Barbies all the time, and now you have Barbie that's a CEO. I mean, we didn't have that. It was Barbie
Yes.
married Ken, and you made, was it Skeeter or
oh my gosh, I was about to say Skittle, but it's not right. It's not Scooter. But there's there's Chelsea. Hold on, I should know this. I have a whole room of Barbies right now. Skipper.
Skipper. Yes. Wasn't it like the cousin or something? Or
Yes,
it was like her niece
yeah. There's Skipper and Chelsea and yeah, but it is, and it's funny because it is the Barbie dream house. It's the Barbie, like, this is what it is. And for little girls, it really is like, that's what it's going to be. And of course, now all of our social media is just like, it's out there and we're announcing everything.
Mm-hmm.
We announce everything. We announce like, I'm pregnant, my puppy's pregnant, we're announcing this. We've got these cute things, which, I've done it too. I love that. But when there's so many announcements and you're sitting back, and that's where I think that a lot of people are behind the screens and we're absorbing all of this celebration. And then we're kind of looking and self-evaluating ourselves and saying like, okay, so like I got up today, I took a shower today, and there's some people that really they're not seeing those things as wins. And it's sad, but you have to be able to separate yourself from that. But at that moment, it was go to college, it was, get a great job, get a boyfriend. And those are those things that are kind of rushing through your head. And at that moment, I really did. My summer, I spent very close to home. I really wanted to be near the house a lot. And then a few years later, my dad was diagnosed with stomach cancer. And, we had moved to Plano. I was engaged. And, thank goodness it worked out. We've been together for 18 years now, but he loved my dad just as much as I did, and I think that really kind of jump started. I wanted my dad to walk me down the aisle. I wanted this, I wanted that. So we got married after about a year being engaged, and again, thank goodness it worked out. But it did jumpstart to where I'm thinking, okay, I know I'm going to have problems getting pregnant. I know that I'm going to have struggles. I'm 21, and in my mind, I'm like, I got to get pregnant. I don't know how much more time my dad has. I don't know how much time I have, So when you're in your 20s, you shouldn't feel like the time clock's going. They talk about that a lot. Women, for some reason, we have like, once we hit like 40 or 50, apparently like we're punching out. I don't know why.
And men don't have that, I don't think at all, right? Theirs is more like, oh man, I'm going to run out of that opportunity to buy that Porsche,
I know. Exactly. But now they have a pill, and apparently the pill's going to revive them, and your wife's going to like it too.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. So at that in my 20s, I definitely felt like my time was running out. My time was running out with my dad. My time was running out possibly for me. So I was very determined and I got tunnel vision real quick.
How were you not able to completely just, I mean, I know you said you had tunnel vision, but what was that like? Did you just like, you're like, all right, let's go. We're gonna, try to make this baby and get going now. And how did you not just rush through all of the days and the years? And, I think that's a hard time even now today that we are so looking forward to tomorrow when we make these plans that we're not living in the present. So was that something that you had to struggle with, was trying to really live in the present as a newly married wife, and but then also kind of fast
Yeah,
forwarding and trying to plan ahead?
absolutely. And it's, I'm have to think here for a second. I'm 36 and I'm looking back and I'm like, man, like I wasn't in the present. I really I skated through a lot of stuff just because for my stress was, hold on, Janelle, we're gonna have to schedule a emotional breakdown. Like we need to book this. I have an opening on Thursday that I might be able to completely lose it. Wait, hold on one second. I have a client that day, so we can't do that. So it really broke down to, me putting my feelings aside. And the thing is that once you get pregnant, and if you don't are not pregnant, once you get married or even engaged, let me tell you something. There are women and men alike who don't even know you, and they are writing down like, hey, when are you going to get pregnant? When are you going to get married? How about baby number two? And I used to do that too. Because I didn't know, and I'm like, oh, they're going to make a beautiful baby. And again, that's just how we're wired. And when you're struggling, in the beginning, you're just kind of like, oh, well, we're newlywed. We're gonna, we want to be single for a while and everything. And that was such a lie. And I said that lie so much because inside my heart would just sink every time somebody would ask me that. And I was very polite for years. I was really polite and, oh, just been really busy with work and just finding every excuse possible. And then I remember one of the hardest times was this was after a few years. It was probably about 2007, 2008. We're at a tax place and sitting down, getting my taxes done. And the lady's going through and she's trying to find like, uh, deductions and stuff like that. And she says, well, if you had kids, you could get, $3,000 back or something. And it took my husband at that time put his hand on my leg, and it took every part of me not to be like, really? Really? Like, who says that? But we tend to think of children as a given, you know. We think that, and it's just because we do see that we're in a time that everything's televised. So you do see, I already forgot what they're called, like 16 and pregnant. You see these younger generations that, are, that they're making their own life, and that's fine. But we're doing that, and then we're missing the point that there could be somebody who is, still young, that knows that they're not going to have that easy, that one night stand. It doesn't happen that way. And when you have somebody that tells you, oh, well, just quit trying and it'll happen and stuff like that. And you're like, I've done that. Like I quit trying.
Just
I
relax.
said, like I did everything, I lit a candle, sacrificed something, like you did everything you could. And you're thinking to yourself, like you do just kind of smile and laugh. And then you do get to a point where you're like, there was a few people that I did just kind of blatantly say, well, if I could have kids, I would. And seeing their face kind of change, at that point, I was like, I'm tired of feeling bad about myself. This is not me. This is not my problem. In a sense, that's society's problem. That's their fault. So, if you're going to ask a complete stranger, oh, you've been married now for 5 years, when are you going to pop out kids? You know what? Then you're going to get a real response.
Yeah. And not only that too, but like, I think a big takeaway and being on that end as well, the pressure of, because we waited, 4 or 5 years before we started having children, before we even started trying, because we wanted to just enjoy traveling together.
Yeah.
And, everyone means well. I don't think that there's any malicious intent. I know there isn't, everyone just, I think a lot of people just don't know what to say. And so they figure, well, I'll just ask, when are you going to have babies?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the biggest takeaway here is, aside from grandparents, because I think grandparents are just naturally always going to ask, when are we going to get a grandchild? But friends, extended family, that pressure, because again, you have no idea what's going on behind closed doors. You have no clue, even if they want children. I know a lot of people don't even want kids and they're not even trying, and they flat out say, nope, it's not for me. And then what is the reaction? Well, why not? Like, it's such a, why wouldn't you? But that's okay. To each his own. Some want children and some don't. And some really, really do that can't. And for us to just assume that, we know it all, we don't. So then what was that like for you? What was those few years of trying, and how did you lead to your IVF journey? I keep wanting to say IVF.
No, it's fine. It's, acronyms are everywhere now.
Yeah.
So, I went back to the doctor that did my original surgery. He already knew, what he was kind of getting into. We started with Clomid, which is, it's a starting point. So anybody that's in that fertility journey, typically Clomid is going to be the first thing that they're going to start off with. Did that for a year. And again, we were early on in our marriage. So getting the green light to just try, like, we were like, oh, this is going to be great.
So question, because this was the doctor that you had already worked with. So did you have to wait that typical year of trying before getting on Clomid? Or that
no. So we had already, first and foremost, like, I really, truly, truly believe, like, you got to get marriage counseling. You have to sit down and talk about those tough questions. Sadly, you will be faced with things that you never would have thought before. So, maybe you have a child that's born with a disability. Maybe you can't get pregnant. Maybe you have to foster. Maybe you have to adopt. Maybe one of the partners in the relationship, maybe they don't want to have kids. Like, those are those questions that you really need to have prior to, so that that and those things will change. Okay, first and foremost, like, 18 years ago, we both had different ideas of things, but I think it's really important to have that counseling. But we did have that counseling prior to, had a very strong relationship with my doctor at a very young age. So he knew the journey that I was going to be on. He knew my husband very well. So we started, at that route. Now, we did that about for a year, and he stopped. It was, I would say, probably about 9 months, and he was like, okay, it's not working. There's something else going on. This is who I want to send you to. So they sent me to IVF Fertility Associates in Dallas. And at that point, I didn't realize what Clomid and almost an entire year of trying had really done to my body. There are side effects of messing with your hormones. There was really bad headaches. I would have problems sleeping. I had hot flashes. That's fantastic in your 20s. Weight gain. I mean, there was just a lot going on. And going to the IVF doctor at that point, in my mind, I was like, okay, if I'm walking through these doors, like, I'm doing this, like, I'm doing it. And again, at that age, I'm thinking, okay, if you have money and you can get a good doctor, you can get anything. Like, I'm thinking, okay, I've got great credit. We're going to put this on a credit card and we're going to have us a baby. I felt really confident. My husband's boss actually had gone to the same doctor. They had great results. I passed all of the blood work, all of the blood tests with flying colors. I did have and I'll probably mess it up. It's a really long word, but it also has an acronym. So it's HSG, where they put fluid in and they're testing your fallopian tubes, kind of testing to make sure that you have a clear shot. And that's when they realized the amount of scar tissue from my previous surgery was really the main issue. Like she said, you've got eggs. We just got to get it, we got to get them to meet. So that's when I felt really confident. I felt confident in myself. I had the summer prior to, I wanted to make sure that I was as healthy as possible. I was working out, I was not drinking. I wasn't doing anything to, in my mind, I was like, okay, mind, body, and soul, cleanse. And at night, again, I did a whole lot of prayer. I really did feel that like if I prayed hard enough, I felt that like I could will it to happen. I would place my hands on my stomach and I would be, God, hear my heart. This is, what I want, let your will be done. But in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, I hope your will is the same as mine. But I was really trying to get through to that. So it was the end of August. I started the injections, and you have to do it like the same time every single day. The first part is they really suppress your hormones because they're trying to control the ovulation. And again, that was something that, they say that this is what your body's going to go through, but you don't, until you start experiencing it, it's really hard to manage it. I was tired. I was irritable. Again, weight gain, hot flashes. At that point in my career, I was working up into management. I was, trying to get a promotion. And then here I am trying to do, IVF as well. And it's funny, back then I didn't think of it as a struggle. But as I'm looking back at it right now, I'm like, what were you doing? What were you doing? You were working 50, 60 hours a week and you're trying to do this. I had just put about $12,000 on a credit card and I felt like I was finally going to get what I wanted. And we found out I had a great success on the egg retrieval. I had 35 follicles that were good to go. So I'm like, wow, that's Octomom, here I come. I was ready. And, we had 2 strong ones and I went in, everything went great. And then about 2 weeks after, I remember sitting in my bed and I started getting really bad cramps. My back started hurting really bad. And at that point, I already had a feeling that it wasn't going to happen. And I told my husband, I was like, there's something wrong. Like, I don't feel good. Like I'm sweating. And he's like, well, you stopped taking the shots. You stopped doing all this stuff. I'm like, no, I said, I know it didn't happen. It didn't happen. And then the next day I got the phone call. It was at the end of the day. So it was around 4:30. So I knew, she said she would call on that day and it was late in the day. So I knew it wasn't going to be good news. And she offered, she was like, you're still very healthy. You still have, there's things that we can do. And I just couldn't say much. I said, okay, well, thank you so much. And I kind of hung up the phone. And like, I just cried. Like it was, it was really hard because I knew in my mind, the first thing I thought of was, in 36 hours, I have to be at work. I have to open up the store. I have to I didn't even give myself a chance to process what was just happening. And all my mind went to was, oh my God, I have $12,000 on a credit card right now. I have got to get paid off. I had booked a trip to Japan. I would be leaving in Japan in 2 weeks. And in a sense, I kind of knew right there and then that I couldn't handle what was in front of me, because everybody knew that I was on an IVF journey. And when they all knew what the news was supposed to be, the phone calls came in, the emails came in, people were trying to see, hey, did it happen? And to have to tell 20, 30, 40 people the same thing over and over again, I'm kind of glad that I went to Japan 2 weeks later, because when I came back, everybody was asking like, hey, how was Japan? Mm-hmm. And it was the end of the year. End of the year came, went, and it never was really talked about again. Mm-hmm. It was just one of those moments that, we just went head first, and we didn't plan for a no. We didn't plan for this might not happen. Now what? And that was probably the hardest thing, is that I didn't get counseling afterwards. I didn't even really get counseling in the middle of it. Once I left my OBGYN, once I left there, I went to an IVF facility that was really great. And they did give, it's funny, I still have my files and all of my journals. Like, they gave me the information, they gave me pamphlets, but we don't read. And to open a pamphlet and be like, yeah, I want to talk to somebody about the fact that I failed, in a sense, as a woman, and I can't have a kid. Like, I could do that, or I could put myself into work. I could work as many hours as possible, climb the career ladder as fast as I can, so that at least I had something to celebrate while everybody else was celebrating, new beginnings, we've got kids, we've got this, we got that. I could at least say, hey, I'm a top GM, I'm this, I'm that. So my focus went from having a family to having a career. And I said, I kind of look back on Facebook, and if you don't do that, I think it's a great eye opener. You can filter your years. And I looked, and it went from 2010, hey guys, sorry, it didn't work, but we're going to try something else, to 2015, to September 15th, I'm going to Japan. Like, 5-day difference. I'm like, what was I thinking? And that's when I realized that God knew I wasn't ready, first and foremost. I was not ready at that point. And now that I have my daughter, that blessing is so much more than thinking I could just walk into a clinic, swipe a credit card, and have a child. And for me, that didn't happen. And it was kind of a humbling experience on that part of, I need to slow down, and I need to find a better relationship with myself and with my husband, because I basically got married, grabbed his hand, and said, we're going to have a baby. And for the 3-4 years, that's what we were doing. And it's not fun in a relationship. It puts a lot of strain, and it's it's hard for both your husband watching you, and then you not being able to express to your husband what it is that you need. So that's definitely a point where I realized that I needed somebody to talk to.
Mhm. Well, and something, speaking of Facebook memories, this is actually what made me really want to reach out to you. And I'm going to read what you wrote, just a snippet. You said, "We are so blessed that God put us through these trials and loss, for we have our beautiful and loving Harper Rose 4 years later." And this was something you posted 3 years ago. "For
Yeah,
those who are quietly struggling, who have experienced the loss and heartache of infertility, know that not all is lost. God's plan is not for us to try to figure out or even understand." And then you go on more. But I think that last part in particular is so powerful, that God's plan is not for us to try to figure out or even understand.
yeah,
And when you're going through trials and tribulations, it's hard because you want to ask why. You're, God, why are you allowing this to happen? Why am I going through this pain? But, you know, He has a plan. He has a plan that's far greater than any of us can ever imagine. Um, and you walking through this now gives you words of wisdom and advice and comfort to those who are now going through the same thing.
mhm,
He uses our stories for his benefit. So
absolutely.
after it not working then that first time, what happened next?
Um, and there was something that, and I probably should have said this in the beginning. So my senior year, before I went to my surgery and everything, not knowing if I was going to have, cancer or whatnot. So um, I went to visit a cousin of mine. She was out in, at that time, Argyle, Texas. And she had a little church, and she's like, "Hey, spend the night on Saturday. We'll go to church on Sunday." So I'm thinking it's just a basic church day. I did not know that she had spoke with, you know, the congregation, and just some of the elders there. I didn't know that she had even said anything that I was going to have surgery. At one point, they called my name to the front. So again, I'm 16 at this time. Church I've never been to, don't know. And I will say that at the Baptist church I went to, we didn't do these things. But I'm like looking at her, and I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Go up there, go up there." I'm like, "Okay." So here I am going up there. And they said, "We heard that you're having surgery. We want to pray for you." And I was like, "Okay, all right." So here I am thinking, like, we're going to hold hands. We're going to kind of, just pray over me, in my mind, the standard, like the doctors give them wisdom, make sure that this isn't cancer. This is what we're going to do. And people started standing up and walking towards me that I did not know. And they placed their hands on me. And it still gives me chills to this moment that they placed hands on me. They didn't know who I was. They didn't know anything other than there was something in my body that was making me sick, and that it needed to leave my body. And I I mean, I think anytime you have enough, whatever your spiritual may be, when you have that much energy and that emotion, and to me, that much truth, that it just washes over you. I left a broken mess, just very overwhelmed. And then for them to be able to do the surgery, keep from having to do a hysterectomy, and then to still be able to have a child, even through, failed Clomid, failed IVF. There was, 4 years after the failed IVF, I got pregnant on my own. I didn't even know I was pregnant. I did not even know I was pregnant. So I always kind of go back to that moment that I'm like, I didn't plan on walking down the aisle. I didn't plan. I don't, sadly, I don't know these people's names. I never met them again, but they took the time to pray over me and lay hands on me. And I was just like, wow, this is something that um, really solidified that I was loved. And sometimes we think that God missed us. Like we're on this island, and we were missed. But God, to your point, He uses people, And at that moment, he needed to like wrap his arms around me and be like, you're going to be okay. Cause I did. I wrote letters my summer of my senior year to some of my closest friends. Um, and I wrote just because I didn't know, like, you're not really sure. You're like, wow, this is a major surgery. Maybe I won't wake up from it. Who knows? So I wrote letters. So that was fantastic for me to be able to experience that. So after failed IVF, I was angry. I was mad. I was embarrassed. I don't know why. Don't be embarrassed, but I was. And it came to that point where I'm like, okay, I'm married. Now what? And I think that's what happens is that married life, you go to work, you come home, you go to work, you go home, you go to work, you come home. And we try to add things to our lives to fill a hole, maybe a puppy, maybe, a new shirt, maybe a child, you're always trying to fill something. And instead of facing it, we try to control it. And my husband and I, that's what we did. He worked a lot. I worked a lot. And at one point, I mean, we really were just almost like roommates. Like we were just passing. And I remember it was 2013, and I never called out of work ever. In the 11 years at that point that I was managing, I never called out of work. Even through IVF, I would take the shots at work. I mean, I worked. And I remember being really, really sick. And I could have sworn my gallbladder, like it was something with my gallbladder. I thought something was going on and didn't really know. And again, before I found out I was pregnant, I was like, you know what? I'm going to love myself. I'm going to start working out again. I'm going to start reading the word every single morning. I'm going to wake up and I'm going to, in my mind, I wasn't even trying to have a baby at that point. At that point, I was just trying to realize that, hey, I'm about to be in my 30s. Okay, I'm about to be in my 30s. And, I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to, do things. I want to feel good about myself. Because somewhere in the midst of everything, I kind of stopped loving myself, So I really started working on myself and having moments with God and being like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but you just let me know. But I'm going to try to be the best person that I can be right now. And that February, I started feeling really sick. I went to the doctor. They did a sonogram of my gallbladder, and they were like, well, we don't really see anything. And I'm like, oh, I haven't been able to keep anything down. I'm so sick. And I'm like, actually called out of work. I mean, I was a mess. I had no idea. So finally, my sister was like, you've never been sick like this ever. I'm taking you to the hospital. So she took me to Alan Presby. And the doctor asked, he's like, well, I want to do a pregnancy test. And I was like, well, I'm not going to pay you for that because I'm infertile. Like, I can't have it. And you're going to try to overcharge me. And I know how ERs work. So I'm not going to do that. And he was like, yeah, let's just go ahead and do it. And I was like, okay, if I'm not paying for this test though. So I do it. And I remember, and he was a young doctor too. For those who remember Doogie Howser, he was young, and he came in with this little sonogram. I mean, just it wheels it in and everything. And I told my sister, I was like, you're going to have to call mom. I'm pretty sure they're going to take my appendix or my gallbladder out. So we're kind of having our own side conversation. And he starts kind of putting, some of the jelly stuff on, and he's kind of going lower than normal. And I'm like, gallbladder's up here, friend. And he was like, you see that right there? And he was like, I would guess that you're probably about 8 weeks pregnant. And I almost died. I was like, come again? I am 30 and I love myself now and I can wear a size 6 jeans. You are not about to tell me I am pregnant. And my sister, she's older than me. She's 5 years older than me. And she was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, calm down. So I was just thinking to myself, it was just such a surreal moment that I laugh about it because God has humor. My God has humor. Okay. And And I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, really? I'm 30. Really? We are doing this? I gave you 10 years of just like, I think I can, I think I can. And here you show up, like nothing. And I mean, everybody was in awe. Everybody was in awe. It was, but everybody talks, now I think of her as like, she's just my 7-year-old, used to be curly haired, wild child. But she is my miracle. And it's somebody that, when people are like, oh, did y'all just want to wait? Because people now want to know, you're mid 30s. Why did you, and I'm like, well, sit down. Let me tell you this story. And it's funny because, this was the right time that I needed to have her in my life. She gives joy to the family. She was the first grandchild, and then my sister got pregnant 6 months later. So my mom had been asking for grandbabies, and now she's got them all close together. But it was a surprise to all of us. There was definitely moments, though, even when I did get pregnant, that I was kind of like, really? My career is great right now. Like, I'm doing so good. And, I was almost kind of still angry because I did lose my dad when I was trying to have a baby. And in my mind, I'm like, God, like he would have loved this, So there was, and I feel like that's selfish of me, but I think that's that human part of us that, those are those emotions, if you try to hide them away, they kind of eat at you a little bit more. And it's okay. It's okay to be mad when your timing is off. And it's okay to, be happy. And it's okay to be sad. But there was definitely moments that I'm like, man, if my dad was here, he would have loved this. But, it wasn't up to me, and that was the biggest takeaway, was that in that moment when I started to let go of the stigma that I needed to have children, that I needed to be a mom, that, keep trying, because we also tried adoption. We tried looking at fostering. We went to the classes. We did all those things. And when I finally was like, okay, I have to love just being me, not Janell and my husband, or Janell and a child, or anything. I needed to love Janell and just be yourself. And for me, it led me to a place that I became healthy, and I was able to conceive on my own, had a healthy pregnancy, had a healthy delivery, and she had a small heart defect, but it was just something that was monitored. She had ventricular septal defect, which is very common. But other than that, she's asleep in the other room. And, being able to do something like this reminds me that, 7, 8 years ago, she was not an option in my mind. And I think that having this conversation allowed me to also remember that, anything's possible. And sometimes you have to just slow down, pray, lots of prayer, but be okay to let go of your idea of what life should be and what it should look like.
Absolutely. Everything was so powerful that you just said. I'm like at a loss of words. I'm just taking it all in, going, yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
And when we let God take it and we stop planning, I was actually listening to a podcast, and I'm going to totally butcher how they said this, but it's like a bullseye, and we're running circles on that outer ring, just running ourselves out and ragged. And what we need to focus is on God in that center of that bullseye. When we rest there, we hit that bullseye. We don't have to run anymore. And
Yep.
his plans are so much better than ours, and his timing is always perfect.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you lived that firsthand. There are so many instances where I have lived that firsthand too,
Yeah.
and we also live in a society that glorifies planning, that
Yes.
glorifies all of these steps. Work hard and get this, do this and get this, and be rewarded for this. So when those things don't come our way, we're like, hold on, wait a minute, hold on,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We live in a world of instant gratification. And sadly, that's just not how it works, and you have to be, you do have to make sure that, you I'm trying to think of the words that I'm saying, but you have to be not careful, but you have to be true with what it is that you're praying for and really what it is that you're wanting. Because I think that we put our blinders on and God is throwing blessings at us every single day. But because we're so bullheaded, I think sometimes he's going to knock you off and it's going to hurt. But know that he needed your attention.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's where I really do believe that having that, and I don't do it as much as, he would probably be like, but, I don't sometimes find enough time to be still. And I think that, maybe you're a morning person. Maybe you like to, wake up, get that extra 30 minutes in the morning to plan your day or to just relax and just kind of take in the day and just be like, count your blessings. Some people do it at night. Some people do it, like for me, it's when I'm driving home from work. I have no stereo on, no radio, and I'm just decompressing and I'm just kind of going over, things that I'm grateful for. And it's not that simple though. I'm kind of thinking, oh, thank goodness I got this done. Thank goodness I got that done. But I think that we go too fast and we miss a lot of the signs that we're trying to, that he's trying to get through to us every single day.
Mm-hmm. Would you do me a favor? Would you subscribe to the show by clicking that subscribe button wherever you're listening? It makes a huge difference for the Lifestyle with Lauren community. I would also love for you to share this show with a friend. I know some of you found this show because a friend recommended it to you. So thank you for listening and being here, subscribing, liking, and sharing, and showing all of your love and support. Thank you. Today's show was edited, mixed, and put together by Jennifer Miner. Music was provided for the show by Matt Bowen, and I'm your host, Lauren Greci. Now let's jump back into the conversation. We were talking about how much COVID, I hate to say it, but I mean, God is he not telling the whole world to slow down? Yes. And just lock it down, be home with your family. And then I kind of giggled with the ice storm that we had in Texas going, okay, now he's really yelling at us. He's like, now you're locked down and you can't have internet. Like,
exactly. And, everybody's journey is going to be different. And, COVID it's awful. It is. But you're absolutely right. And 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, if somebody said, hey, we're going to shut everything down and everybody's going to be locked at home, like, and that's in my mind, I joke about it all the time. I'm like, God sent us to our rooms. He sent us to our rooms. And you know what he did? He said, this is the house you made. And I really think that it put a lot of things in perspective, things that because we allowed ourselves to be busy that we just kind of overlooked, maybe issues with our relationship with, how strong it was, we were just kind of like, oh, hey, sit down and eat really quick and then run over here and run to soccer and run to this and run to that. And God said, okay, this is your family. Okay. You need to rekindle the love. You need to rekindle the strength. We need to build a better foundation because I'm trying to get to y'all and I can't. And in no other time, is now. Like there's no better time to center yourself and center your family than right now. And, some people will post, oh, time to clean out Facebook, or time to do this again and time to do that again. And, I kind of giggle at that. But I'm thinking to myself, God kind of did that with us. God said, okay, it's time to clean up. And if you're not happy with, what's going on in your life, you've got to change what you're doing. And so many times it's because we're allowing the worldly things to get us off track. And, finding the joy of walking and doing scavenger hunts with my 7-year-old in the neighborhood, just trying to find different ways to do arts and crafts at home. I mean, my hallway doesn't have, pictures and stuff like that. It has Scotch tape with, drawings that she did, all up and down and everything. And I had to realize, like, that's okay. Like, that's okay. This is my house. This is my family, and this is how we love, and this is how we grow. And she would have never had both of us at home if this didn't happen. So being blessed to have a job that allowed me to be at home, be with her during this time, I'm very, very grateful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's funny how even during that time, what does everyone wind up doing? Everyone looks at their homes and going, oh, hold on, I don't like our home anymore. Now let's completely redo everything here too. We still find ways to be busy.
Yes. Oh yes. Which is good for my husband. That's his phone was blowing up, and he's like, people realize that they need better internet and they want big screen TV. So
yeah, they all want pools in their backyard now.
Exactly. Oh, the pool business. Well, man, that's a stock that I wish I had bought into. So
that and Zoom. We missed out on the Zoom stock as we're using Zoom right now.
I know.
Okay. At the end of every episode, I like to ask my guests 3 questions.
Yeah.
What are you loving? What are you reading? And what is making you laugh?
Okay. So, what am I loving? So for me, what I am loving is being able to be flexible and being able to work from home. I have a great job. I work for a great college sports family, and it's fantastic to be able to Zoom and work from home and wear, business top and wear, yes. Y'all don't know what's going on down here.
Yeah. Everyone just missed it. I lifted up my sweatpants.
Exactly. So I think that, that's something that I'm definitely loving. What was the other one? What am I reading? Mm-hmm. I am reading a ton of children's books right now because my first grader, and it was funny. I was like, oh, well, you know what? I'm going to say that, one of the books that I had read about, leadership and Yeah, no, I'd be lying. Like for the past 3 weeks, I have been reading first grade level books with my child and working on phonics right now. So that's what we're reading. There's a lot of books out there that I would love to start. And then what makes me laugh? I think that's kind of the same thing on that. But what makes me laugh? It would still have to be my child. My child makes me laugh every single day, just on the fact of she picks up on everything. She'll say something. You know what? What makes me laugh is that Kroger commercial. That Kroger commercial where they're like, down, down, down. Okay, my 7-year-old will be at the back of the house and that Kroger commercial will come on. She knows every and she just starts, and I'm like, oh, okay, she's watching too much TV. But that Kroger commercial, that's a good commercial. They're doing
good commercial. I know. They're doing good with that one.
Yes.
That's so funny. Janell, I could talk to you for like a whole nother hour about everything because you are just so much fun to talk about. So I'm going to have to figure out a time where we can do this again because you are so full of wisdom. And I think you have a lot more wonderful things to share and talk about too. So I want to leave on one thing. If someone is going through IVF and is going through this journey, what tidbit, what love, what advice would you send to them right now?
The biggest advice that I would probably do. Well, there's multiples, but first and foremost, take a breath. There is no time limit. Do not feel that you are under the gun to do anything. Okay. People will say you've got, if you're reaching your 40s or this or that, do not listen to them. Just give it a second. But also talk to somebody that's not your medical professional. It can be someone who is in your church. It could be somebody who has also gone through this, or even a counselor. A lot of companies nowadays have great free counseling programs that I think you could really get a lot of help with. And don't hold off on your breakdowns. You've got to release that emotion. So do it in a safe place. And again, that is with somebody who loves you, and cry, because every time you hold that back, it builds and it builds and it builds. But there is no time limit. Find somebody to talk to. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't mean that it's not going to happen.
Thank you for listening to the Lifestyle with Lauren podcast. If you liked what you heard today, please subscribe, comment, leave a review, and share with your friends. Thank you so much. Today's show was edited, mixed, and put together by Jennifer Miner. Music was created for the show by Matt Bowen, and I'm your host, Lauren Greci. I'll be back here next week with another wonderful conversation. Thanks for listening today. Bye, friends.